Hi there, welcome back to Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football in English language. I'm Michael Statham, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Nathan. Nathan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Greetings. I'm the Seleção correspondent for the website Portugal.net, which features English language news on all things Portuguese football.
Amazing. And of course, we're here to preview Benfica against Ajax in the Champions League last 16. Now, Nathan, I looked at this tie when it came out of the hat, Benfica, and I thought that Ajax could have done a lot worse here with teams coming out the last 16. But Benfica have always been a strong side. It is going to be a tricky tie. When I was doing a little bit of research about this, I remember back to when Benfica beat a really good PSV to qualify for the Champions League group stages. It was at the time where PSV were frightening. They've dropped off a little since then. And Benfica came through a group with Bayern Munich and a struggling Barcelona. But then look at the league table, and they're in third place. So what's been happening to Benfica this season?
Yeah, so for those unfamiliar with the Portuguese league, that's kind of a good place to start. Just most people might look at a league table and think, third's not so bad, but historically, for a club like Benfica, third is kind of a disaster. This is a club which historically is going to win the championship, or going to want to win the championship every year. And just in summary, this season they started out pretty well, actually, up through about September. They were perfect. Then they lost a match they probably should have won against kind of a lower or a mid-table side, Portimonense. Meanwhile, in the Champions League, they were paired with some pretty difficult clubs in their group, and they did admirably, actually, in those matches. But when you kind of get into some of the details, they really did really well in one game, and that was at home against Barcelona at a time when Barcelona were not playing good football in any competition, which is of course changed now. Since then, it's been kind of one disaster upon another for Benfica. They lost their coach. They parted ways with their manager, Jorge Jesus. They were knocked out of the Taça de Portugal in the fifth round by Porto, getting beat 3-0 in a match which could have been even worse. They were beaten in the final of the Taça de Liga, which is the other domestic cup final, by rivals Sporting, and they're basically heading into this encounter with Ajax with essentially nothing to play for this season, and it's the end of February, so it's a pretty peculiar situation for that fan base.
That sounds great for Ajax fans, Dutch football fans in general, who are hoping that Ajax can go far in this competition. I mean, one of the big reasons is because the Dutch football is eyeing up that third Champions League spot, which Portuguese football currently has. How big is this in Portuguese football? Because in Dutch football terms, the media have been on this quite a lot. That the Dutch football is having an amazing season. There are teams such as PSV Feyenoord going far in the Conference League potentially. That it could be great news in a couple of years' time when there's a second automatic Champions League spot and a third one getting to the qualifiers. It's what they're eyeing up, and this tie against Benfica could therefore be massive for that.
Yeah, it's and similarly for Portugal, historically, three heavyweight clubs, Sporting, Porto, and Benfica, and the competition for those Champions League berths is fierce, as it is in other leagues like the Dutch league. And so for Portugal, really, this season to not be performing as well in Europe, or at least to have clubs that are struggling at this stage, doesn't bode well for the future. And a lot of what Benfica is trying to do in kind of elevating their status is to kind of get outside of success in just the Portuguese league and perform better in Europe. So maybe a few years ago, if you had said that in the round of 16, Benfica and Ajax were facing off, Benfica might have felt a little better about that, and it's just not the case this season. There's not a great deal of encouragement coming out of that camp at the moment, and for pretty good reasons. So that said, maybe one of the psychological factors which may assist them is a point I mentioned previously, there's really nothing else to play for this season for Benfica. There's no league. There's no domestic cups. They're against a club in Ajax who are heavily favored to beat them. You know, so maybe they pull something out of the hat, and that's really kind of what they're hanging their hopes on. Unfortunately.
Well, let's talk about Ajax. They've got this season an amazing team. I think that it still feels as though they've got another rung or two up the ladder to climb as a club and as a team of players. That they've got young players that are reaching kind of their limits, but they're not there yet, which is great for Ajax that they're keeping these players for that long. You've got players like Anthony who are a couple of years away still from being at their best. But I think had you been talking about Ajax 5 years ago, maybe I don't think they would have been getting a player like Anthony. I think he would have thought that he didn't have much to do, much to grow with Ajax. So it's fantastic that they're doing so well. This season they've scored way over 100 goals in all competitions. Mm-hmm. They've conceded, you could count them on one hand the amount of goals they conceded in the league. Yeah. It's incredible what they're doing. They've got players such as Jurgen Timber who are making a breakthrough this season at centre back, having had the Euros that they had, and not having played many games for Ajax at the time. He's gone on and excelled since then. Martinez also flourishing at centre back. They're not the tallest centre backs, but they're very physical and they win things on the ground. Full-backs this season, Daley Blint is a great left back, Mazraoui, fantastic at right back. Sadly, he's leaving at the end of the season. And that's without even going into their midfield and forwards. We all know about Tadic, Anthony this season, Aller scoring the goals, being the top scorer in the Champions League with all his goals in the group stages. What do Benfica do? Is there a way of playing against them that will stifle them? I remember when they went away to PSV and really frustrated them.
Yeah, and look at that match. I think the way they were attempting to play, especially in that second leg, was really physical, and there were a lot of yellow cards in that match, and that's obviously a way that any club that's really outnumbered, tactically, let's say, technically, like Benfica will be, are going to try to slow down the cadence, of that Ajax, midfield, but really, going back to front, Ajax is a integrated team. They have players at every position, which is really what they're famous for historically, isn't it? Just being able to have, good ball playing, technical players at any position. So I would look for Benfica to play physically in this game. I think that the attempt they're going to make is going to be to kind of maybe put all their eggs in one basket and play for a victory at home, and then just hold on in the away leg. All tactics, which again don't particularly suit Benfica super well. So historically, Benfica are a front-leaning club. They play attacking football because in the Portuguese league you have to. If you're one of the top three clubs, you're going to be facing a stacked defense every match, and so if you're a club like Benfica, you're gonna pile your best players, in the attacking third. And so not
this
being able
to be greatly onto, I think, about the styles of play that we're going to see in this match, because Ajax is so used to playing against defensive teams like you mentioned, and they love playing against sides that are going to be more open. They're so strong, and they've been very strong in the last few years away from home in Europe. So how does that play out in terms of Benfica? Do they like that style too, going toe to toe?
Yeah, not really. So the evidences I'll use from the Champions League are the two matches against Bayern, when they were flattened, in both of those matches, because you're facing a team, you're so outmatched. If you're Benfica, you have to play your strengths and go forward. They did that. And actually, in the first encounter with Bayern, there were a couple moments in that match that they could have taken maybe a several goal lead. Instead, they fell behind by several goals, and from then it was just destruction. So sometimes these ties go that way, and it might be fascinating for that reason. If Benfica could get an early goal to start the first leg, that might initiate a sequence of events that makes it a pretty entertaining encounter. I don't see that happening because Benfica's defense is terrible. So that's kind of the scenario they face. I love Portuguese football, and I'd love to be more hopeful. I don't see this going well for Benfica, unfortunately.
So that brings me to my final question, which is, what do you think the scores will be in the away leg and the home leg? I, all things point towards Ajax going through over these two legs, but I just feel as though, in typical Dutch football fashion, it just won't be that simple. And this season, to be fair, has proved me wrong in so many levels with Dutch football, that Dutch teams have gone and impressed in most games they've played, and
Yeah.
Ajax continue to be just so impressive that they'll turn up in these European nights, having had they scraped past Fulham 21-0, and they're on a run of, say, like 12 defeats in 13 or something like that, and then they still only had to win 1-0 thanks to a late goal from Jurgen Timber.
Yeah.
So even without Gravenberch probably not playing this game, David Klaassen will come in, and it will make a difference that they're such a strong team. But yeah, well, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, so I think Benfica will probably make it maybe a bit closer than I'm alluding to in the home leg. I think they'll score a goal, maybe two or something like. But I think it's the defense. They don't have the ability to sustain a defensive effort against a club like Ajax, who aren't really relying necessarily on one or two standout players. It's an integrated team. That's something that Benfica have not been, and so I actually think they'll lose both legs. I think the home leg will be the more entertaining of the two, maybe like a 2-1, something like that. But I suspect the away leg will be something like a 3-0 type situation for Ajax. So. And again, that's just because when I look at this group of players, Darwin Nunez, the striker for Benfica, has had a decent season. Rafa Silva, the Portuguese international, has had a few standout matches, but there's been no consistency, and I don't look at them really mounting much of a significant effort. I think they'll lose this tie on aggregate by multiple goals.
And that's come from a Portuguese football expert. So Dutch football fans will be getting their hopes up. If they want to leave their own predictions in the comments, please do down below on YouTube, and give this video a like if you enjoyed it. I'm just going to give my 2 cents. I think that in the away leg, I think both teams to score will be a great bet, because I think both teams are going to go for it, and they'll grab a goal. Ajax, whilst being so solid defensively in the league, probably will leak a goal in this game, because they're up against a strong opponent. They did against PSV as well, where Mario Götze scored. Yeah, I think 1-1 or 2-1 to either side in the first leg is very likely to happen. And then the away leg, yeah, I think Ajax will come out really motivated. They will if they're losing, if they're drawing, if they're winning. They'll want to come out and win that second leg in Amsterdam. That sort of suits them, really, having their home leg second in old school European fashion, actually. So yeah, I do think Ajax will go through, but I don't see it being as simple as them sort of steamrolling over two legs, to be fair. It's having watched Benfica against PSV, I think they're going to make it really tricky.
Yeah, you just have to remember that was a different time in the season. Benfica were playing, some different football in that time. They had Jorge Jesus. There was less, drama in the side. They hadn't lost as many matches as they have to their rivals. Porto and Sporting have beaten them in almost every single encounter they've had in any competition this season, which is demoralizing. Again, I think psychologically, let's see if Benfica can summon the energy to look at this as their last gasp chance to do anything positive with this season. And for them, beating an opponent like Ajax would be a significant step forward to maybe having a better season, next year. And so you could look at it that way. Otherwise, I don't think there's anything in this for them. And it's really, they're looking to rebuild, from here to the start of next season. So.
Well, Nathan, thank you very much for joining me on Football-Oranje. Where can people find you if they have a taste of Portuguese football?
Yeah, so the website, www.portugal.net. I write kind of more thought pieces for that site, kind of longer reads. I'm more heavily involved with the Portuguese national team, the Seleção. You can find me on Twitter at Nathan Motz. And I love talking football with anyone. So just shoot me a message, or give me a follow, and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. I love talking football. Thanks so much for having me.
And thanks, watchers, listeners to Football-Oranje. You can like this and subscribe for much more Dutch football content.